Hi, welcome back to my channel. This video is going to be essentially about my time at Gamestop. I was at Gamestop for 5 years, so I had a lot more to say than what was actually in my previous one, which was my time at Gamestop and why I no longer shop there. Which I do not shop at Gamestop any longer unless it's pretty much for random collectibles. And that's just because they don't have the best deals. So I don't dislike GameStop. I'm not unhappy with the time I was there. I did go through 9 store managers while I was there, which is not a great ratio. So my first store manager, his name was Chandler. He was a pretty nice guy. He hired me in. My first day was actually the Halo Reach launch. Yeah, ironic that I would start on a Halo release. But he was a pretty nice guy. He wound up moving back to San Diego, which is where he lives. Then they brought in a guy named Mike. Mike was an awesome guy. Still friends with him. Still keep in contact with him. He actually got me my current job when he found out I was unhappy with where I was at. He put in a word of recommendation for me. He was like, this guy's great. Whatever it was that he might have said, I don't know. But he was the one who moved me up into management at GameStop. He was there for a while with me. He let me do a lot of stuff. He let me do the Halo 4 midnight release, which was, he essentially said, you're the Halo guy, so go ahead, make it your baby. I had just became a manager, so that's kind of why he was like, you can handle this. I got a cosplayer to come in, full Master Chief armor, headlights that worked on it, the whole 9 yards. It was awesome. He did the Gangnam Style dance. Then we told everyone we're gonna do a Halo Reach Reach tournament. Play Halo Reach on these TVs that I got errands to lend us for the night, and I got a whole bunch of free food from different companies. Essentially, what I did was I bargained with them for advertising. Like, hey, we'll advertise for your company if you help us do this. So we gave away some prizes. The grand prize was the DLC content for Halo 4, the War Pass or whatever it was called. That was awesome. That was a lot of fun for me. We had a lot of people show up. We surprised them that night. It wasn't a Halo Reach contest. It was Halo 4 before it even came out, and everyone was super ecstatic. I'll post a picture, actually, of me at that release on my Facebook, Backpocketgamereviews on Facebook. So if you want to check that out, I'll have that posted on there for you. But he promoted me up into management. Then they let go of him. They laid him off. They gave him some kind of package to essentially, well, they offered him to step down, but they gave him a package because that's what he opted for, to bring in what was called a Store Manager 2. Store Manager 2 means that my store didn't make enough to support a store manager's salary. We were in a very slow dying mall, and right across the street there was another GameStop. So do you really want to trek with your stuff through a mall? Not really. So this guy's name was Wes. Wes was a nice guy. He was just extremely cocky. I've never met anyone who thought being a GameStop store manager was as cool as this guy did. Which, don't get me wrong, it's cool. We work in a game store. You talk about what we like. It's not an extravagant job, though. It's not like you're living some rich and famous lifestyle. And I know some of the top-end paid GameStop store managers in my area only make $50,000 a year. That's high-end. So, I mean, I get it. He had some nice truck. His wife and him had a condo. But it's not an extravagant lifestyle. So then they gave the store over to who was called Dave. And Dave was a fantastic character. Dave wore button-up shirts, and he was super by the book and did everything by the book. Nice guy. Best work ethic I've ever had. Super nerdy. Like, puts me to shame style nerdy. His references would be stuff that would predate me, and he was only like 2 years older than me. And when I say predate me, I mean predate me by like a decade. He was very old-fashioned, parted his hair, wore these button-ups that looked like he was about to go on a safari, thicker rimmed glasses than me, and PC Master Race kind of guy. I mean, that's just who he was. Kind of socially awkward, but super nice guy, did really well with customers, awesome person to work for. Then I wound up with a guy named Keith, which is who they brought in. I hadn't worked probably for 4 months at this point. So I was like, hey man, if you want to toss me some hours now that the holidays are coming around. Keith was a pretty nice guy, pretty mellow, pretty relaxed. He came in from another state. I don't remember what state. It was like Wyoming or something like that in the Midwest. Then they moved Keith over to a new store that they had just opened and gave this store to Keith. And they brought in this other guy. I don't know what his name is. He is a terrible, terrible piece of individual. I mean, literally, he is worthless. I was on my honeymoon. Keith had known I was on my honeymoon. He was like, have fun. Let me know when you can work when you get back. So I get back, and this new guy's the one in the store. Because I was dropping off the vest from my wedding to the tuxedo shop. And I get in there, and I was like, oh, hi, I'm Nick. I'm one of your employees. I guess you're the new manager. And he goes, you're not one of my employees. Unless you have open availability and I hired you, I put in a request to have you let go. So I was like, oh, okay. So what I did was I went ahead and I called the district manager, who I was still friends with. I'm not a manager anymore, but I was a manager for him for a while. So called the district manager, and I was like, hey, he just said this to me, and he goes, oh, yeah. From what I hear, they're not a very big fan of this particular manager. That's also why he's the only one I'm not giving any kind of name for. But he also had some legal issues and stuff, and that eventually he'll no longer be with the company is pretty much the best way to say that. So he went ahead and he moved me to the store across the street. So I had a lady named Tiffany as my store manager. She wound up leaving because she was pregnant and just never decided to come back. Her husband, from what I had been told, made pretty good money. So then they brought in a store manager that I knew, who was Ashley. And Ashley was a fantastic store manager. She is still there with the company to this day. So is Dave. Those are the only two out of that group that are still there. Actually, even after the next store manager, that's still the only ones that are still there. She was probably my district manager, one of his favorite employees. None of us were ever really pushy, though, like I feel a lot of GameStop managers are, but I'll go into that in a second. So then they moved her to another store. They moved her to a problem store for her to fix it. And then they brought in Steph. Steph's no longer with the company. I knew Steph as well. I was actually a regular at a store that she worked at, and the store I got hired into was her first store. So she was actually the one who, in last February, so not the one we're currently in, so 2015's February, called me and goes, are you able to give me any more hours? And I was like, no, not really. I can only really work midnight releases. I'm a full-time retail manager. I don't have time to really give over to a lot of things. So she just was like, well, are you cool with us parting ways? And I was like, yeah, that's fine. So that was the end of my employment at GameStop. That was my 5 years right there. GameStop does slightly hound about rewards cards. Rewards cards are a big one for them. And pre-orders. Pre-orders are a really big deal. The reason why pre-orders are a big deal is they don't make a lot of money off of each game. If they buy a whole bunch of one game and then all of a sudden that game doesn't sell, they're stuck with it. It's not like the company is going to buy those back off them. They prepay for those. That's why, there's no returns on software. If you don't like it, that sucks because the companies won't take the money back. It used to be that way where with like Nintendo, if you didn't like this game, you could return it, but then people would start beating them and returning them, and Nintendo and companies like that no longer wanted to eat that money. So that's where that comes from. But, at my store, we didn't really hound for it. We had a lot of regulars, and what a lot of people don't take into consideration is the signups themselves aren't necessarily what GameStop's pushing you for. If you have 10 customers that day, 5 of them already have rewards cards, it's not a huge deal then. Your percentage is going to be okay either way. Pre-orders were hit or miss in my store. I never really pushed pre-orders that they wanted, unfortunately for them. So, hey, pre-order new Call of Duty. No, the kid's going to tell me if he wants to pre-order Call of Duty. I'm going to push games I really like. So, Naughty Bear was a big one. I got a whole bunch of pre-orders on Naughty Bear. That's an awesome game, by the way. If you've never played that game, go out and buy it right now. It's worth every penny. You play as a serial killing teddy bear. I'll do a review on it sometime. But GPGs were another one. That's another one of their statistics, and that's just game protection guarantee. It's essentially a warranty on your disc. If anything happens to your disc, we'll swap it out. You maybe pay, I think it was like $3 for a brand new game. We warranty it for a year. Really easy. If you were a young kid and you had an Xbox 360, hey, look, man, you move that console, you're going to have a burn ring in there. That's what's going to happen. Yeah, Xbox 360 customers bought them like hotcakes, especially parents with kids. I don't really ever feel like my job was on the line for not selling. I get that a lot of ex-GameStop employees say that theirs was. I never once had my job threatened due to numbers. I did well with numbers, but my district manager put a lot of focus on make sure your customers are happy. That was his big thing. They want the customers to leave that store happy. At least my district manager did. So GameStop as a whole, as a company, a lot of their focus isn't necessarily on you as a gamer. You're their target audience. They already have you. They don't have to advertise to you because they're the only game store, really. There's no one out there that's giving them some huge competition. But they also don't make a lot of money on these games. So they have to be able to sell all these add-ons or sell used iPhones or be able to mark up their used games because that's how they keep the lights on. I get GameStop is a multi-billion-dollar company, but unless a company decides to stop paying its CEO billions of dollars, which every company does, you're not going to see that revenue be overwhelming. So essentially for them to keep their luxurious lifestyles at the top, that's the way all retail is going to go. Even with Amazon, I'm pretty sure Amazon's CEO probably makes insane amounts of money. They don't redistribute that down either. The store manager gets a bonus in GameStop. That's the only person who gets a bonus. Their audience of who they're really going to market to is a lot of kids. They want kids. They want the kids to bring the parents in because they might not have disposable income, but that parent is probably going to spend more on that kid than I am as an adult on myself. It's just kind of how it works. Kid's going to get bored. You want the kid to be happy, enjoy himself. They're going to want to play the games. However, the terrible thing with parents and kids is the parent's going to ask you, oh, how bad is this M-rated game? I have seen parents come in there and buy Grand Theft Auto 5 for 6-7-year-old kids. I'd never held back. You're buying Grand Theft Auto 5 for your kid? Hey, there's an anal scene in there. Yeah, full out. You pretty much see everything. Oh, little Jimmy, you're okay with little Jimmy seeing that. Oh, fantastic. There's a torture scene in there that made certain adults uncomfortable. Oh, you're okay with Jimmy seeing that as well. But then that same mom would come back in and go, you sold my son this. No, ma'am. I was the one who helped you. You asked me what was in there. You did. You asked. I told you. You decided it was okay for your son to play that. She's going to be heated. She's going to probably go off on me. It happened quite often. Red Dead Redemption was another game that created... Rockstar games create a lot of controversy, especially when you're trying to advise a parent why they should or shouldn't buy them. Look, I'm okay with you buying an M-rated game for your kid. I'm not saying your kid can't play that M-rated game. I'm saying that you should know what your kid can and can't handle. If you don't know that, I don't know that. So I'm going to tell you what's in there, and then you be the judge from there. But if you feel that it crossed the line, I told you. I told you the worst scenes in that game. I never held back on that. I have been into a couple of GameStops recently. One right by my house. I went in for a Pokemon Day to get a poster. I will say this, even stating that I had previously worked at GameStop and didn't really shop there, this guy was super pushy. So I do see where a lot of that hate towards GameStop employees comes from. He's, hey, do you want to renew your card? Look, man, I've made 2 transactions here this whole year. I'm not the person you want to pitch a card to, which that was always my key thing. You're in there trading in $200 worth of merchandise. Hey, you want a free power-up rewards card? Because it's going to bump up your trade-in 10%. That's $20 more towards you, so you get $5 more. You'll get $5 more out of this deal and a magazine subscription, which Game Informer is a good magazine, especially at, $15 a year. But Best Buy gives you that $30 for 2 years and 20% off new games. 10% off of used games isn't that big of a deal when I don't buy used games. So my issues with GameStop are probably just how they treat their store managers. Their turnover rate on store managers is ridiculous. I won't say that I deserved to be paid better. I mean, I made okay money. I make much better now, but I made okay money. It's not like I ever felt mistreated or like I had to work a 60-hour work week or anything like that. I was never advised to work off the clock. It was always make sure you're clocked in. The only thing I will say, this is the only thing I've noticed about GameStop, which a lot of people think this is GameStop doing this for the good of their employees. GameStop doesn't open on Thanksgiving. And I'm going to tell you why. Because everyone thinks, oh, they want their employees to enjoy the family time. That's not it. GameStop's not open on Thanksgiving because GameStop doesn't pay overtime. You were never allowed to work overtime. Ever. Well, holiday pay is overtime. If you don't work the holiday, they don't have to give you holiday pay. They don't want to pay you the same price that they're essentially almost going to be paying 2 people to do one person's job. So that's why GameStop is not open on Thanksgiving or any other holiday. At least not any holiday they're required to have to pay holiday pay for. Again, it's not that they're a terrible company. Their bottom line is their end goal, not everyone's happiness with them. And I mean, don't get me wrong, that does play a part of it, because if you no longer want to shop there, their bottom line is again affected. So they do want to make everyone as happy as they can, but I mean, you're dealing with games. This is a hobby for most, a passion for some, or something a parent has to deal with. Parents are typically the most difficult to deal with, not necessarily the gamers. Gamers are normally the easiest to deal with. Parents would come in and be like, oh, if you played the new Babysitting Mama, was that good? Yeah, I played Babysitting Mama. I have 2 kids at home, and I decided in my free time I was going to sit down and play Babysitting Mama. I know some store managers will let their employees borrow the new games. You're allowed to borrow a game as an employee. Every store manager I ever had, for the most part, only let us borrow used games. That was it. Some store managers will let employees take home new games. That's, for most store managers, though, that is very looked down on. So, I mean, there's really your ins and your outs to GameStop. It's not that it's a bad company. It's just, a lot of people wind up stealing is the big one they get caught for. That's typically what happens. I never stole. I caught 2 people that worked there. But, that's one of the things that working in a game store kind of caters to. And working with, actual gamers that are your regulars is a lot of fun. Your whole day you're talking about games, which is my passion. That's what I love to do, is game. So, but there you go. Choose to like or dislike or hate GameStop all you want. But that's what it's like to work there, at least for my 5 years of it. And again, as I said, I've seen some stores that are pushy, but not all of them are like that. So Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know if you feel differently or you just didn't like something I said. You can put that down there too. I got my first hateful comment. Well, not really hateful, but the guy didn't like that I had on a Pokemon shirt. So, again, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.